Hello again, everybody. My name is John D. Healy. I do a podcast. It's called It's Good to Talk, and it sure is good to talk. My sponsors are Liffey Van Lines, a moving company here in New York City. They've been around longer than the New York City Marathon, and they're running very smoothly. A lot of experience in moving. When it comes to moving, let Liffey do the lifting. Another shout out to the Irish Examiner USA, and one of my favorite newspapers here in New York City, covering all of events in New York and indeed across the pond in Ireland too. It's good for events coming up, especially in the arts and the world of music and history and indeed politics. So keep in touch with irishexaminerusa.com. Now, I was supposed to have a guest on today, Maria from Portugal, but she had technical reasons, so she won't be here. So I have to do some creative stuff on my own. But I did take advice from my mother one time: never run after a woman or a bus. Anyways, there's lots to cover today. I want to give you some ideas of stuff that I have coming up. I met a lady yesterday downtown in Peter Clark's bar, and she had just got her all clear from cancer. It was such an exciting moment to meet somebody that's got the all clear of cancer. Not alone that, she is a tour guide here in New York City. So we had a great conversation. I did tell her to go back and check out my podcast with Oliver O'Connell from County Clare, The Burn. You remember that one? A Journey, Not a Destination with Oliver, where at the end of the podcast, he really shocked me and surprised me by telling me that he had also survived cancer. Now, speaking of the travel business and tourist business and tours, two friends of mine are starting a new business in Ireland called Ashling Tours. Ashling, of course, is an Irish word. It means dream, and it's called Ashling Dream Tours, actually. And those tours will be unique, privately taken care of to all the needs of whoever's traveling, going off the beaten path, going to places where the regular tours, like the regular tour buses, bring you and don't bring you. So you'll get to visit the Cage of Fields, which is in County Mayo, and you'll meet Professor Dr. Seamus Caulfield there, who was the originator of the Cage of Fields. You'll also be brought off track to a bar called Bessie's, that's down in Lacken Cross, and you'll be able to walk from that bar right to the beach. It might be hard to find, but definitely it'll be hard to leave. I drank there one time, and I know that. Now, I do want to cover a lot of other stuff today. There's a lot of elections coming up, and I will be hitting on those in particular. So if I do run over, I'll get Jimmy to sing sooner and let him back to school or wherever he's going. But that's Jimmy Grady coming up, so wait for Jimmy. Now, the first election I want to talk about is there's a huge election coming up in India as we speak, and people are voting already. And the voting goes on for a number of weeks because it's a huge population, I think 1.4 billion maybe. And India got its independence from who else? England in 1947. And the British actually gave back India to India with a few stipulations. They do like to fuck things up, don't they? They divided India and Pakistan at the time. But I would want to shout out, remiss of me if I didn't say who was the organizer in a very peaceful, dignified way, was Gandhi. Now, who was Gandhi? Gandhi was a famous icon, Indian guy, Hindu, of course, but he created all the peaceful demonstrations to ease the British out, which he was successful in doing. But before that, he studied law in England, of all places, and then he went on to work as a lawyer in South Africa. So he did get some of his groundwork from being in South Africa as a lawyer, okay? A couple of interesting things you might know about him and you mightn't know about him is, unlike lawyers you see here in New York City that wear the expensive Fifth Avenue suits and a nice tie, Gandhi decided to wear a simple piece of garb. It was like a wraparound towel woven thing, and that was to emphasize the poverty of the people he represented. So the poor and the down and out, who weren't represented by the politicians. If anything, the English rule was the same system they had in Ireland: high taxes, take everything you could. If you made nothing, they would take taxes off you anyway. So when you take taxes from nothing, there's nothing left, is there? Only aggression and poverty. But anyways, the British left in 1947. As a matter of fact, they were supposed to leave in 1948, but they decided to leave a year earlier. That's up to them. I don't know why they did that. Anyways, I'll be coming to the Northern Ireland shortly, of course. So there's huge elections going on in India. The results of those elections will be around the 6th or 7th of June. And at the same time, the European elections in Europe those elections will be around the same time too. So a lot going on in the world of elections. So let me jump right into the European elections. There are 27 countries in all of Europe at this time. There were 28, but the UK left, as you well know. It took them a while to leave. They voted to leave by a small margin, and then they realized they kind of screwed up, I guess, but they had voted to leave, and that's the system. Now, when they left, they didn't realize all the baggage and issues and mess they'd left behind. They forgot about the children, the people they left behind who are their subjects. If you take the Malvinas, Falkland Islands, that's owned by the British. And indeed, if you remember your history with Maggie Thatcher, when she bombed and murdered people to save a few people and a lot of sheep in the Malvinas. So thank you, Maggie Thatcher, bitch. Anyways, they also own the Rock of Gibraltar, which is an island close to Spain. And it's just maybe less than 500,000 people there. And really and truly, it should belong to Spain. And indeed, the Falkland Islands should belong to Argentina. Anyways, let me get back to on track with the elections of the European Union. So now, less UK, 27 countries will go to vote. That's about 4.5 million people in the market, huge market. The union was created to make the ease of movement and products and services, especially agriculture stuff at the time, but people as well, designed as well to leave countries their unique own cultures, your language, if you have your native language. I do, but English is my language now, thanks to the British for closing down the schools when my grandparents grew up. So we have something to be grateful for. The elections will be June 6th, June 7th in all of Europe. And each country will be allowed, the citizens of Europe, to vote for whoever is going to represent them in the European Parliament. So they'll be known as MEPs, members of the European Parliament. This year, 2024, Ireland will be having 14 members to represent Ireland. How do they decide on how many from each country? It's generally based on the size of the population. So Ireland's population increased by a couple of million in the last number of years, like recent number of years, to be quite honest. Before the famine, we had 8 million people. And after the famine and immigration and everything else, we were reduced to 4 million. That's half of our population was wiped out one way or the other. Okay? So now we're back up to about 6 million in the Republic of Ireland. Northern Ireland has 2 million approximately. So the 2 million there are kind of divided between the Unionists or the Nationalists, or if you want to call them Catholics and Protestants. But I don't like using the Catholic and Protestant term because all the religion stuff is pretty much diluted down. And I'm saying that as an atheist. But not that I want everyone to jump on my team, because I respect everybody's religion, but it just shows you the numbers, how they change over the years. Now, I did mention the mess the UK left, Britain left, when they left Europe. And now the conundrum is, for the Northern Ireland people is, are you British, are you Irish, or are you European? Well, this is a very important question. If you're Irish, you can vote for your MEP to be a member of the European Parliament and to represent what you want done in your country, in your neighbourhood, in your area, in your district, whatever is to do with. Could be to do with roads, could be to do with infrastructure, could be to do with education, could be to do with crime, could be to do with housing. All of these things need to be discussed, and that's what the European Parliament is about, achieving a greater economy and peace as well for everybody. So where is Northern Ireland now? Well, they can't vote in the European elections, and I feel sad and bad for them, because as a cousin here in the south of Ireland, where I was originally born, I am extending my hand to say, please wake up, come on, get your vote in the European elections the same as the other 4.5 million people, and be represented by a community of peace, economy, and wealth and creativity, or stay with London and be miserable forever, never, never, never again. We were miserable for long enough. Anyways, it was 1973 when Ireland joined the European Economic Community, as was known then. And the man from Ireland, his name was Jack Lynch. He was the leader of the Fianna Fáil party at the time, and he was from Cork. And it was very creative on his part to see the bigger picture by being a part of a bigger picture is better than being a part of a little picture. We were Ireland, we were poor, we had extremely bad infrastructure, we had roads that only had potholes. They were like really a disgrace, to say the least. And we joined Europe based on, I guess, the economy being agricultural based. And if we did, in the negotiations to join, if there was a bit of a screw up, the fishing rights was something that we didn't negotiate very well. Now, I don't like to apportion blame on anybody or any situation, because case Sarah. But the Dublin politicians didn't really know much about the west coast of Ireland and the importance of fishing to the economy of the west coast of Ireland. So they grabbed the good bits of what they wanted from Europe and traded off the fishing rights. So that was a mistake. I could go into more detail on that, but I won't for now because it's not relevant. Now I'm going to ask Jimmy to sing a song so I can get a cup of coffee, and I'll come back to you.
By a lonely prison wall, I heard a young girl calling, Michael, they have taken you away, for you stole Trevelyan's corn, so the young might see the morn. Now a prison ship lies waiting in the bay. Low lie the fields of Athenry, where once we watched the small furry birds fly. Our love was on the wing, we had dreams and songs to sing. It's so lonely round the fields of Athenry. By a lonely prison wall, I heard a young man calling, nothing matters, Mary, when you're free. Against the famine, the crown, I rebelled, they cut me down. Now you must raise our child with dignity. Low lie the fields of Athenry, where once we watched the small furry birds fly. Our love was on the wing, we had dreams and songs to sing. It's so lonely round the fields of Athenry. By a lonely harbour wall, she watched the last star falling, as the prison ship sailed out against the sky. For she lived in hope and pray for her love in Botany Bay. It's so lonely round the fields of Athenry. Low lie the fields of Athenry, where once we watched the small furry birds fly. Our love was on the wing, we had dreams and songs to sing. It's so lonely round the fields of Athenry. It's so lonely round the fields of Athenry.
Okay, thank you, Jimmy. And I'm back to you now again to talk more about some of the European countries that are members of Europe. I'm going to give you some information about Portugal. So Portugal is a member of the European Union as well. Let me see what year they joined. So they joined in 1986, and the euro currency, most of us joined in 1999. Now, the euro currency, I think, was a brilliant, brilliant idea, because before that, each country in Europe had its own individual currency. For example, Germany had the Deutschmark, Ireland had the Irish pound, UK had the British pound, and France, and so on and so forth, and all that. So how do we manage with all that? different rates of currency. They had a system called the snake. So each country had to keep its currency within the snake. So it couldn't be overvalued or undervalued. And it was very cumbersome. And if you were traveling, say, from one country to another country, like here in the USA, you go into Europe, you have to change currencies then. And it was expensive because there was fees, and you got ripped off exchanging the money going into one country, and you got ripped off again coming back each way. So the euro solved all that problem. It's one equal currency in Europe. Out of the 27 countries, 20 countries are part of the euro currency. So basically, you want to go to France or Germany or Luxembourg or Portugal, you just get there, you have your euros. Of course, nowadays everything is plastic, so everything works. You go to the ATM, get your euros out. So the euro solved a lot. There was a few little hiccups at the beginning, but like everything, those were ironed out, and the euro is what I consider a success. Now, the economy I was talking about Portugal, they have a very low crime rate. They have a very good health system. They're basically Roman Catholic, not that really matters. They are a member of NATO. A lot of the European countries actually are members of NATO, okay? And NATO is important from the point of view of stability and peace in the region. And NATO was set up, I think, after World War II. And that was just to protect small countries like, say, for example, Malta, I think has only about 500,000. So Malta is a member of the EU, is a member of NATO as well. And I'll come back to Malta on another podcast, okay? So what else did I want to tell you about? They have some beautiful rivers, the Douro, the Montenegro, the Tagus, and the Sado. Population is 10 million, which is not too bad. They do boast of having the largest wind farm in the world. And I'm big into wind and energy. That's something I campaigned for in Ireland when I was there. And I believe we should harness the wind and indeed solar energy as well. Of course, especially after a solar eclipse there a few weeks back. If that's not giving you a hint about the power of solar, let's wake up. So they got all of those good things going on for them. And I think next week I'll move on to talk about France and Germany. Those were early members of setting up the EU. So those early guys set up, like France, Germany, Luxembourg, and indeed Portugal, were all early members to form the EU. And they were working on that since 1958. And then it got organized. The structures in Europe, the European Parliament, which I've attended, the European Court of Human Rights, there's the Council of Auditors. So it's a pretty organized system and a democracy, of course. And I did tell you that India is the biggest democracy in the world. But yet, it's only 10% of the world that is democracy. That's kind of a strange statistic. So I think I'm going to move on, and I think I'm going to sign out on the European National Anthem, which was originally composed, but now it's part of the European National Anthem by Beethoven. Now, Alex was on my podcast before. Remember her? The girl from Bulgaria. She's been playing the piano since she was 5 years old. She has a twin who's also obviously 5 years old, who's been playing the piano since the age of 5. So they're big into playing the piano. So this music now on piano, the national anthem of the European Union, I'm going to dedicate it to Alex because I want to hear her play it live on piano. So I do sign off in my Irish language, and I'll sign off today and say Slán Abhaile, which means goodbye. And you might like this one. Like, the Irish for take it easy. Take it easy. That means lig the ski, okay? Lig the ski. So Slán Abhaile means goodbye for now, safe home, and lig the ski. And I'll see you on my next podcast, John D. Healy. It's good to talk.